imagine with me, if you will. You are 7 years old, girl, boy, it doesn't matter. You are 7 years old, and it is an ideal spring day. The sun is shining, 70 degrees, not a cloud in the sky. Outside, the flowers are blooming, bugs are coming up out of the ground, the snow has melted. You can hear all sorts of wildlife around you, streams, organisms of every different kind just waiting to be discovered and studied. Now, imagine yourself as this 7-year-old again, but this time you're super antsy. You're stuck in a classroom with this gorgeous day happening outside, and you've just been corrected for the 10th time to sit still, be quiet, and pay attention. And you also have this looming parent phone call just hanging over your head. If you raise your hand one more time, if you don't raise your hand one more time and ask a question, okay? In this sort of environment, do you feel inspired to learn? Do you feel comfortable around your teachers and your classmates? Probably not. I know I wouldn't. I know my rambunctious 4-year-old son, who's wild and crazy, he wouldn't feel comfortable in this sort of environment. And in this sort of environment, pressures are also on because there's curriculum that needs to be learned. There are state quotas that need to be met in order for teachers to get proper funding and to be able to keep their jobs even sometimes. Kids aren't comfortable learning in this environment, and they're not getting enough recess time as they should be. More and more recess time is being cut down. This isn't good for our children's mental or physical health, and recess time actually needs to be extended if we want our kids to succeed in the classroom and succeed in their overall academic careers. Now let's pause and take a look at what recess actually is. Unlike physical education class and unlike after-school sports, recess is a time of unstructured play that regularly happens every day during the school day. In United States classrooms, kids typically get 20 to 60 minutes of recess per day. Now, a researcher by the name of Sergio Pellis, who is a researcher from the University of Alberta, Canada, says that developmentally, play is important because when kids play, the neurons that are located at the front of their head actually change the way that they connect to each other. So when kids are playing, our brains are actually changing. So how does this happen? Well, and why is it important? Well, if kids aren't playing, these neurons aren't changing and the brain isn't developing the way that it should. So how does this happen when kids play? Well, what happens is when a kid goes outside for recess with no little adult interaction, obviously adult supervision, but when kids go outside to play, let's say they want to come up with a game with their friends. It's a superhero game. So they're outside with their friends. They have to decide what the object of the game is, what the rules of this superhero game is, how do you win, do you even win at all, and what kinds of characters are in this game. Okay, so as kids are interacting with their friends and coming up with answers to these questions, the brain is actually creating brand new circuits in the prefrontal cortex. So when kids aren't playing, the neurons in the prefrontal cortex aren't changing, and the circuits that are being created, well, they're not being created. It's important for our kids to go outside and socialize and interact so that the brain develops the way that it should. Okay? Now, like I said, in the United States, kids get anywhere from 20 to 60 minutes of recess per day. Okay? Now, in inner city schools, kids typically are getting less time than kids in suburban schools. So is it a coincidence then that across the board, urban schools are testing a lot lower than kids in suburban schools? Now, yes, obviously income and, their social environment and their home environment plays into that as well, but it makes you wonder if maybe the time of recess that they aren't getting compared to kids that grow up in the suburbs, if that's not affecting it a little bit as well. Now let's veer on over to Japan. In Japan, kids score off the charts in reading, science, and math. They also score significantly higher than kids in the United States. Also in Japan, kids get 15 minutes of recess per hour. Okay? The reason why they do that is because there's overwhelming evidence that says after the 40-minute mark, kids' attention spans, they're done. They've reached their limit. They need to reset so they can come back and be able to retain information better. So in the United States, while kids are getting 20 to 60 minutes of recess per day, in Japan, kids can get anywhere from 100 to 120 minutes of recess per day. That's a really significant difference. If the United States Board of Education set a higher standard for the amount of time kids get for recess each day, we would see better scores on our tests, and overall the morale of public school would probably go up. Eagle Mountain Creek Elementary is an elementary school in Fort Worth, Texas that has started to adopt this idea of increasing recess time. So in their elementary school, they decided that they would give 2 15-minute breaks in the morning and 2 15-minute breaks in the afternoon, recess breaks, okay? When they did this, they automatically started seeing changes that absolutely astounded them. Kindergartners and first graders were coming in and able to sit still and listen to the teacher's lesson plan way better than they were doing that when they only had one recess in the morning and one in the afternoon. They also noticed that kids were able to solve problems better. They weren't coming in to tattle as much because they were having these social interactions and they felt confident in handling their own problems. Now, Eagle Creek Elementary School decided to do this program called Link, who was created by a woman by the name of Debbie Ray, and she's a professor at Texas Christian University. And she came up with this Link program when she studied abroad in elementary schools in Finland. While she was there, she noticed that in Finland, kids, just like in Japan, got 15 minutes per hour of recess time each day in school. Like Japan, Finland is also at the top of the charts academically and with their overall academic performance. So as kids are getting more recess time, they're doing better in school. Eagle Creek Elementary students also are doing better in school now that they have more of these breaks. Now, as we're all sitting here, our brains have developed significantly. They're almost about done. I'm 25 years old and my brain has developed, and pretty soon it's going to start deteriorating. During life, we spend more time with a deteriorating brain than we do a developing brain. So we need to make sure that we are setting up our kids for cognitive success, okay? So we need to make sure we're giving them the environment that helps them be creative, interact with their friends, and help their prefrontal cortex grow the way it should be growing. If we want people to be able to solve problems better, if we want our employees to work better as teams, in teams when they're older, if we want overall better social interactions, we need to increase recess time. Our kids are kids. Our kids are kids, and they need to be able to be kids. They need to be able to adventure and socialize and have free time and not be as structured. When we increase recess time, we'll see happier kids, smarter kids, and more comfortable kids. Thank you.